Maya stared at her phone screen, watching the three dots appear and disappear. He was typing something, then stopping, then typing again. She already knew what was coming. It had happened so many times before that she could practically write the script herself. "Hey, I've been thinking." The message finally came through. "You're really great, but I don't think I'm ready for something serious right now. I hope you understand." She did understand. She understood perfectly. What he really meant was that he wasn't ready for someone in a wheelchair. He just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. Maya deleted the conversation and tossed her phone onto the couch beside her. 6 years. It had been 6 years since the accident that changed everything, and she still wasn't used to this part. The rejection, the pity. The way people looked at her chair first and her second if they bothered to look at all. Her cat, Mr. Whiskers, jumped onto her lap and started purring. At least someone loved her unconditionally. She scratched behind his ears and tried not to feel sorry for herself. She had a good life. A great life, actually. Her graphic design business was doing better than ever. She had amazing friends. A nice apartment. Financial independence. Everything except the one thing that seemed to matter when it was missing. Someone to share it all with. Her best friend Jasmine had been pushing her to keep trying. "You just haven't met the right person yet," she'd say with that optimistic smile that Maya both loved and found irritating. Easy for Jasmine to say. She'd been happily married for 3 years to someone who fell in love with her before life got complicated. Maya's complications came with wheels and metal and looks from strangers who couldn't decide whether to stare or look away. The Q accident replayed in her mind sometimes, usually when she was alone like this. She'd been 22, fresh out of college, driving home from her first real job interview. The other driver ran a red light. She never saw it coming. One moment she was singing along to the radio, excited about her future. The next moment everything went dark. When she woke up in the hospital 3 days later, the doctors explained that her spinal cord injury was permanent. She'd never walk again. Those words didn't feel real at first. She kept waiting to wake up from the nightmare, but weeks turned into months and the nightmare became her new reality. Her boyfriend at the time, Kevin, promised he'd be there for her. He lasted 4 months. 4 months of hospital visits and rehabilitation appointments before he sat her down and told her he couldn't do it anymore. "It's too much," he'd said, not meeting her eyes. "You're not the same person I fell in love with." That hurt worse than the accident itself. Because he was right in a way. She wasn't the same person, but not because of the wheelchair. She'd become stronger, more resilient, more aware of what really mattered in life. Kevin just couldn't see past the metal frame to notice any of that. After Kevin, Maya threw herself into rebuilding her life. She learned to do everything from her chair. Cooking, cleaning, working, living. She became independent in ways she never imagined. Her design career took off because she had nothing but time to perfect her craft. She made new friends in the disability community who understood her struggles without needing explanations. But dating, that remained a minefield she couldn't successfully navigate. She tried the usual apps, posting photos that clearly showed her wheelchair. She refused to hide it, refused to spring it on someone as a surprise. If they couldn't handle it from the start, she didn't want to waste her time or theirs. The matches came slowly. Most men swiped left immediately. The ones who swiped right fell into predictable categories. There were the fetishists who had some weird obsession with disability. She blocked those immediately. There were the saviors who wanted to rescue her, treat her like a charity case. Those were almost worse than the fetishists. And then there were the ones who seemed normal at first. They'd chat, seem interested, agree to meet up. But something always shifted after the first date. They'd start asking invasive questions about her disability, or they'd become overly helpful, treating her like she couldn't do basic things for herself. Or they'd ghost her entirely, like the guy tonight. Maya picked up her laptop and opened her design software. When emotions got too heavy, she worked. She had a logo project due next week for a local bakery. At least in her work, people judged her on her talent, not her mobility. 3 hours later, Jasmine's name flashed on her phone. Maya considered ignoring it, but Jasmine had a sixth sense for when something was wrong. She'd just keep calling. "Hey," Maya answered, trying to sound upbeat. "What happened?" Jasmine asked immediately. She always knew. Maya sighed. Same story, different guy. He wasn't ready for something serious. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. He's an idiot. They're all idiots. Or I'm the idiot for keeping trying. Don't say that. You're amazing, and someone's going to see that. When, Jazz? I'm 28 years old. I should be going on dates, falling in love, building a life with someone. Instead, I'm sitting at home on a Saturday night talking to my cat. Mr. Whiskers is excellent company, Jasmine said, trying to lighten the mood. But I get it. I really do. Have you thought about maybe expanding your search? There are dating sites specifically for people with disabilities. Maya had thought about it, but something felt wrong about limiting herself to only dating within the disability community. She wanted someone who chose her for who she was, not because they felt more comfortable with someone who understood their own struggles. I don't want to segregate myself, Maya said. I want someone who sees me as a person first. Is that too much to ask? It's not too much to ask. It's the bare minimum. And you deserve someone who gives you that and more. After they hung up, Maya sat in the quiet of her apartment. The city lights twinkled through her window. Somewhere out there, people were falling in love, meeting at bars, laughing over dinner, holding hands while walking through the park. Normal things that felt impossibly out of reach. She thought about giving up on dating entirely. Maybe she was meant to be alone. Maybe that was okay. She could get more cats, build an even bigger business, travel the world. There were plenty of ways to have a fulfilling life without romance. But late at night, when the work was done and the distractions faded, she couldn't ignore the loneliness. She wanted someone to share inside jokes with, someone to cook dinner for and have them cook for her, someone who'd see her struggling with something and help without making it weird, someone who'd kiss her goodnight and mean it. She wanted what everyone wanted, to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved for all of who she was, not in spite of parts of her. The wheelchair was part of her life. It would always be part of her life. But it wasn't her whole life. It wasn't her personality or her sense of humor or her dreams or her fears. It was just the thing that helped her move through the world. Why was that so hard for people to understand? Maya shut her laptop and transferred to her bed. Mr. Whiskers followed, curling up beside her like he did every night. Tomorrow she'd wake up and try again. Not with dating, maybe, but with living, with finding joy in the things she could control. And if someone came along who actually saw her, really saw her, then maybe she'd be ready. Maybe she'd believe it was possible. But tonight she let herself feel the disappointment, the frustration, the wondering if she'd ever find someone who looked at her heart before they looked at her chair. Tomorrow she'd be strong again. Tonight she just needed to feel what she felt. The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue had been Maya's sanctuary for 3 years. She knew every corner, every accessibility feature, every barista by name. Tuesday mornings were her favorite. The place was quiet enough to work, but busy enough to feel connected to the world. Plus, they made the best vanilla latte in the city. She was halfway through editing a website design when her power wheelchair started making a strange clicking sound. Maya frowned and tried to move forward. Nothing. She pressed the joystick again. The chair jerked slightly but didn't budge. Come on, not today, she muttered under her breath. Rain was starting to fall outside, the kind of steady drizzle that promised to last for hours. She tried the controls again. The chair moved backward but refused to go forward. Perfect. Just perfect. Maya pulled out her phone to call the repair service, already calculating how long she'd be stuck here. Their usual response time was at least 2 hours, sometimes more. She was supposed to have a client call in 40 minutes. Excuse me, is everything okay? She looked up to find a guy crouching beside her wheelchair. Concern on his face, but not the usual mixture of pity and discomfort she was used to. He had warm brown eyes, slightly messy dark hair, and wore a hoodie with some tech company logo she didn't recognize. My chair's being stubborn, Maya said, trying to keep her voice light even though frustration was building inside her. It does this sometimes. Mind if I take a look? He asked. I work with electronics and mechanical systems. Might be something simple. Most people either ignored problems or offered help in a way that felt patronizing. This guy just seemed genuinely curious, like he'd help anyone with a technical issue. Sure, why not, Maya said. Can't make it worse at this point. He moved around to examine the motor and control system, not touching anything without explaining what he was looking at first. Maya appreciated that. Too many people just grabbed her chair and started pushing or fiddling without asking permission, like it was public property instead of an extension of her body. I'm David, By the way, he said while inspecting a connection near the battery, Maya, nice to meet you. Okay, I think I see the problem. Looks like this connector came loose. Happens sometimes with vibration. Do you have a small screwdriver in your repair kit? She did. Every wheelchair user learned to carry basic tools. She handed him the kit from her bag, and he carefully tightened the connection, checking each wire with the kind of focus she recognized from her own work. Try it now, he said, moving back. Maya pressed the joystick forward and the chair moved smoothly. Relief flooded through her. Oh my God, thank you so much. I thought I'd be stuck here for hours waiting for the repair service. David stood up, brushing off his hands. Happy to help. Those connections can be tricky. You might want to check it weekly just to make sure nothing's working loose. He could have left then. Most people would have. Mission accomplished, good deed done, back to your own life. But instead he glanced at her laptop screen and his eyes lit up. Wait, are you Maya Chen, the graphic designer? She blinked in surprise. Yes. I follow your work. That redesign you did for the Riverside Community Center last month was incredible. The way you integrated accessibility features into the navigation without making it feel like an afterthought, that's the kind of thing most designers completely miss. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. She wasn't used to being recognized for her work in random coffee shops. You actually read design blogs? Guilty, David said with a grin. Occupational hazard of being a software engineer. I'm always looking at how people approach user experience. Your portfolio is honestly one of my favorites. The color theory alone is brilliant, but you also clearly understand how people actually interact with websites. They started talking about a recent article on accessible design principles. David had opinions, good ones, and he listened when Maya explained her philosophy about creating beautiful things that worked for everyone. 20 minutes passed before Maya even realized she'd completely forgotten about her client call. Oh no, she said, glancing at her phone. I was supposed to be on a call 5 minutes ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you, David said, looking genuinely apologetic. No, this was great. Really great. I just need to reschedule. She sent a quick message to her client explaining a technical difficulty which wasn't entirely untrue. Her wheelchair had been the issue even if it was fixed now. When she looked up, David was still there, hands in his pockets, looking like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. Would you maybe want to grab dinner sometime? He asked. I'd love to hear more about your design process, and honestly I just really enjoyed talking to you. Maya's heart did a little jump, immediately followed by the familiar wave of caution. How many times had someone seemed interested only to disappear once they really processed what dating her would mean? But there was something different about David. He'd crouched down to her eye level when they talked. He'd fixed her chair without making a big deal about it. He knew her work, had genuinely engaged with it. He hadn't asked a single invasive question about her disability. Sure, she heard herself say. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers and David suggested a new art gallery that had opened downtown. I checked and their website says they're fully accessible. There's a new exhibit on modern typography that looks amazing. He'd already thought about accessibility, without her having to ask, without making it into a whole thing. After he left, Maya sat in the coffee shop for a long moment, trying not to get her hopes up. One conversation didn't mean anything. Lots of guys seemed great at first. The real test was whether they stuck around, but still. Something felt different this time. David texted her that evening. Not a hey or what's up, but a link to an article about the history of Helvetica font with the message, thought you might find this interesting. The designer's original sketches are wild. They texted back and forth for over an hour, jumping from typography to terrible science fiction movies to their shared love of cooking experiments gone wrong. David told her about the time he tried to make homemade pasta and somehow ended up with what looked like cement. Maya countered with her story about attempting to bake bread and creating something the consistency of a hockey puck. It felt easy, natural, like talking to someone she'd known for years instead of hours. Their first date was that Saturday. Maya changed outfits 3 times, which was ridiculous. She was 28 years old, not a teenager. But she wanted to look nice. Not because she needed to impress him, but because she wanted to feel confident. Jasmine called right before she left. So, tell me about this guy. His name is David. He's a software engineer. He fixed my wheelchair and knew my design work. He fixed your wheelchair. That's either very smooth or very nerdy. Both, I think, Maya said, smiling despite her nerves. I'm trying not to get too excited. You know how this usually goes. I do. But maybe this time is different. Text me during dinner so I know you're okay. The gallery was in a converted warehouse with wide corridors and proper ramps, not the tiny afterthought ramps that so many places installed. David was waiting outside and his face lit up when he saw her. You made it, he said, as if there was any chance she wouldn't show up. Did you think I'd stand you up? No, I just mean I'm really glad you're here. I've been looking forward to this all week. They walked through the exhibit together, discussing the evolution of fonts and arguing good-naturedly about whether sans serif or serif was superior for body text. David had strong opinions which Maya appreciated. Nothing was worse than someone who just agreed with everything she said. At one point, they came to a display that was positioned too high for Maya to read comfortably. She was about to roll past it when David casually said, "Want me to read it out loud? My vision's better from up here." No fuss, no big production. Just a simple offer. Sure, thanks. He read the placard with funny commentary that made her laugh, and they moved on. It didn't feel like he was helping someone in a wheelchair. It felt like two people experiencing something together, working with their different perspectives. Halfway through the exhibit, they stopped at a small cafe area. David grabbed them both coffee, asking how she took hers without assuming he should carry everything for her. Can I ask you something? Maya said, turning her cup in her hands. Of course, and now why aren't you acting weird? David looked confused. Weird how? About the wheelchair. Most people either treat me like I'm fragile or ask a million invasive questions. You're just normal. He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. My mom has MS, multiple sclerosis. She uses a wheelchair sometimes, a walker other times, depending on how she's feeling. I grew up watching people treat her like she was either broken or inspiring, when really she was just my mom trying to live her life. That must have been hard for her. For all of you. It was. But it also taught me that disability is just part of someone's life, not their whole identity. You're not Maya in a wheelchair. You're Maya who happens to use a wheelchair. Same way I'm David who happens to wear glasses. It's just part of who we are. Something in Maya's chest loosened, a tightness she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. They spent another hour at the gallery, then walked to a nearby restaurant. David had called ahead to make sure there was accessible seating, which he mentioned casually when they arrived. No big announcement, just thoughtful planning. Over dinner, they discovered more shared interests. Both were only children who'd been close to their parents. Both loved cooking but hated following recipes exactly. Both had strong opinions about pineapple on pizza, though they disagreed on which side of that debate was correct. This has been really nice, Maya said when they were finishing dessert. It has, David agreed. Would you want to do it again? There's supposed to be a photography exhibit opening next week. I'd love that. Walking back to where she'd parked her accessible van, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real. Genuine hope that maybe this could be something. 3 months into dating David, Maya kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was like she was holding her breath, expecting him to suddenly realize that being with her was too complicated, too different, too much work, but the shoe never dropped. Instead, David just kept showing up. He texted her good morning every day. He sent her funny memes about design disasters. He called when he said he would. He integrated her into his life so naturally that sometimes Maya forgot to be anxious about it. Their second date had been the photography exhibit, where they spent hours discussing composition and lighting. Their third date was cooking dinner together at her apartment, which resulted in slightly burned chicken but perfect chocolate cake. By the fifth date, they'd stopped counting. What surprised Maya most wasn't that David was comfortable with her disability. It was that he never made it the center of attention. When they went out, he noticed accessibility issues before she had to point them out, but he didn't turn it into a production. If a restaurant had steps, he'd simply suggest somewhere else without making her feel like the problem. One evening, they were at his apartment watching a terrible science fiction movie they both loved to hate. Maya had transferred to his couch, and David was sitting beside her, their shoulders touching. During a particularly ridiculous scene involving aliens who somehow spoke perfect English, he turned to her. Can I ask you something? Maya felt her stomach tighten slightly. Here it comes, she thought. The questions about her accident, her prognosis, whether she'd ever walk again. The invasive stuff people always eventually asked. Sure, she said, trying to keep her voice casual. Do you think the special effects in this movie are worse than the plot? Or is the plot worse than the special effects? She burst out laughing, relief flooding through her. Definitely the plot. At least the effects are trying. I disagree completely. The effects look like they were made on a computer from 1995. They argued about it good-naturedly for 20 minutes, eventually agreeing that both were equally terrible, which was why the movie was so perfect. It was moments like that when Maya realized how different David was. He saw her as a whole person with opinions, preferences, and a personality that had nothing to do with her wheelchair. When he looked at her, she could tell he was thinking about what she'd said, not about her disability. They started spending more time together. David met Jasmine and her husband over brunch, where he held his own in the rapid-fire conversation and teasing. Maya met his mom, Patricia, who welcomed her warmly and shared embarrassing childhood stories about David while he pretended to be mortally wounded. I like her, Patricia told David later, not knowing Maya could hear from the kitchen. She's got spark, and she doesn't let you get away with anything. I know, David replied. I really like her too, Mom. Maya smiled while putting dishes in the dishwasher. Being liked by someone's parent shouldn't matter as much as it did, but it felt good. Really good. As their relationship deepened, Maya noticed David including her in future plans without hesitation. He'd talk about restaurants they should try next month, concerts coming up in the fall, a weekend trip to visit his college friend. He assumed she'd be there, part of his life going forward. One Saturday afternoon, they were at a street festival downtown. It was crowded, which always made Maya a bit nervous. People didn't always watch where they were going. And more than once she'd had her wheels stepped on or had someone trip over her footrests. David walked slightly ahead, not in a protective way but enough to help clear a path through the thickest crowds. When someone wasn't paying attention and nearly walked into her, he'd gently redirect them. When they stopped at food vendors, he'd check if she could reach the counter comfortably, and if not, he'd relay the order without making it obvious. You're good at this, Maya said after they'd found a quieter spot to eat their tacos. Good at what? Navigating crowds. Being helpful without being overbearing. It's a skill, David shrugged. I just pay attention. Same way you probably notice design flaws everywhere you go. He was right. Maya couldn't walk past a poorly designed sign or confusing website without mentally fixing it. David noticed accessibility issues the same way, not because he was trying to be a hero, but because his brain was wired to see those things. Can I tell you something? Maya said, setting down her taco. Always. I was so scared when we first started dating. I kept waiting for you to realize that being with me meant dealing with stuff other people don't have to deal with. Inaccessible places, medical appointments, people staring sometimes. I thought you'd get tired of it. David put down his food and turned to face her directly. Maya, every relationship comes with complications. My ex used to get anxious in social situations, which meant we left parties early or skipped them entirely. My college girlfriend had a demanding job that kept her working until midnight most nights. Relationships require adapting to each other. Your wheelchair is just one of many things we navigate together. It doesn't bother you, honestly. Sometimes I get frustrated when places aren't accessible, because it means you can't experience things you should be able to. But that's frustration with the world, not with you. You being in a wheelchair doesn't bother me any more than me being 6 feet tall bothers you. Your height is actually convenient, Maya joked. You can reach the top shelf at the grocery store, see? Every trait has its uses. They finished their tacos and spent another hour walking through the festival. Maya pointed out a booth with handmade ceramics, and David surprised her by buying a small blue bowl she'd admired. For your desk, he said. To hold paper clips or whatever designers keep on their desks. Broken dreams and coffee stains. Mostly, Maya said, but she loved the gift. That night, lying in bed with Mr. Whiskers purring beside her, Maya realized she wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. She was just living her life with someone who made her happy, someone who challenged her, made her laugh, supported her dreams, and called her out when she was being stubborn. The wheelchair was part of their life together, but it wasn't the defining feature of their relationship. They were two people who enjoyed each other's company, shared values and interests, and were building something real together. A few weeks later, David invited her to his company picnic. Maya felt nervous about meeting all his co-workers at once, but David seemed excited to introduce her. This is Maya, he told everyone they met. Not my girlfriend Maya, who's a graphic designer, or any qualifier. Just Maya, like that was enough. Because to him, it was. His co-workers were friendly, asking about her work and sharing funny stories about David's coding mistakes. One of them, a woman named Lisa, pulled Maya aside while David was getting drinks. "I have to tell you," Lisa said. "David talks about you constantly. Your latest design project, something funny you said, places you've been together. I've known him for 5 years, and I've never seen him this happy." "Really? Really, you're good for him. He's more open, more engaged with life. Whatever you two have going, it's working." When David came back with lemonade, Maya looked at him differently. Not as the guy who happened to accept her disability, but as the person who made her life richer, fuller, happier. Someone she was falling in love with, wheelchair and all the complications included. "What?" David asked, noticing her staring. "Nothing. Just thinking about how lucky I am." "I'm the lucky one," he said, bumping his shoulder against hers. "We can both be lucky." Deal. They spent the rest of the afternoon playing ridiculous lawn games and eating too much barbecue. David's team won the egg toss competition, which he was unreasonably proud of. Maya took photos of everything, already planning to create a photo album as a surprise gift. Driving home that evening, Maya thought about how much her life had changed in just a few months. She'd gone from resigned loneliness to genuine happiness, from wondering if anyone would see past her wheelchair, to being with someone who saw all of her. David wasn't perfect. He could be stubborn about directions and refuse to admit when he was wrong about movie trivia. He left dishes in the sink and sometimes got so focused on work that he forgot to eat lunch. But those imperfections made him real, human, someone she could build a life with. And that was the thing about finding the right person. It wasn't about finding someone who looked past your challenges. It was about finding someone who saw all of you, challenges included, and chose you anyway. Someone who understood that everyone comes with complications, and your particular complications weren't deal breakers. David saw her heart first. The wheelchair came second, maybe third or fourth on the list of things that defined who she was. He saw her humor, her talent, her strength, her vulnerabilities. He saw Maya, complete and whole, exactly as she was. That evening, David texted her a photo from the picnic. It was the two of them laughing at something, caught in a moment of pure joy. She saved it immediately, making it her phone background. Jasmine called an hour later. "So, how was the company picnic?" "It was perfect," Maya said, and she meant it. "He's the one, isn't he?" Maya smiled. "Yeah, Jazz, I think he might be." For the first time in 6 years, Maya wasn't afraid of the future. Whatever came next, they'd figure it out together. And that was more than enough. 6 months into their relationship, Maya's worst fear finally surfaced. Not from David's actions, but from her own mind. They'd gone to dinner at a new Italian restaurant. It was a nice place, the kind with cloth napkins and soft lighting. Everything had been fine until Maya needed to use the restroom. The accessible bathroom was down a long hallway around 2 corners, practically in a different zip code. David noticed her checking the bathroom location on her phone. "Want me to come with you? That hallway looks narrow." "I can manage," she said more sharply than she intended. She navigated the hallway alone, barely fitting through one section where they'd stacked extra chairs. The bathroom itself was technically accessible but awkwardly laid out. By the time she made it back to their table, she was frustrated and tired. David looked concerned. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she lied, but it wasn't fine. Something had shifted inside her, a feeling she'd been pushing down for weeks. She spent the rest of dinner quiet, picking at her pasta, giving one-word answers. "Maya, talk to me," David said gently. "What's going on?" "Nothing." "I'm just tired." They drove home in silence. David walked her to her door, and she could tell he wanted to ask what was wrong, but he didn't push. He just kissed her goodnight and said, "Call me tomorrow?" She nodded, but she didn't call the next day, or the day after that. Jasmine showed up at her apartment on Wednesday evening, using the spare key Maya had given her. "Okay, what's happening?" "David texted me asking if you're okay. He's worried. And frankly, so am I." Maya was on her couch with her laptop, pretending to work. "I don't want to talk about it." "Too bad. We're talking about it." Jasmine sat down and waited. The silence stretched between them until Maya finally broke. "I can't do this anymore, Jazz." Do what? Be with David. It's not fair to him. Jasmine's eyes widened. What are you talking about? You two are perfect together. We're not, though. Do you know how many times a week he has to help me with something? How many places we can't go because they're not accessible? How many times people stare at us? Has David complained about any of that? No, but that's the problem. He should. He should be frustrated. He should want someone easier, someone normal. Maya Chen, don't you dare use that word. You are normal. Tears started falling before Maya could stop them. I watched him help me navigate that stupid restaurant, bathroom hallway, and all I could think was that he deserves better. Someone who doesn't need help, someone whole. Jasmine grabbed both of Maya's hands. Listen to me. You are whole. You're complete exactly as you are. The wheelchair doesn't make you broken. But it makes everything harder for him. Relationships are always hard, Maya, in different ways for different people. My husband has to deal with my anxiety attacks. Does that make me not worth loving? That's different. How? How is it different? Maya couldn't answer. She'd never thought of Jasmine as a burden because of her anxiety. She'd never thought any of her friends with various challenges were burdens. But somehow she couldn't extend that same grace to herself. After Jasmine left, Maya sat in the darkness of her apartment. Mr. Whiskers climbed into her lap, sensing her distress. She thought about all the moments with David, all the times she'd felt happy and seen and loved. And she thought about Kevin, her ex-boyfriend, who'd left because she wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe it was better to end things now before David realized the same thing. Before he woke up one day and understood what he'd signed up for and decided it was too much. She picked up her phone and texted him. Can you come over tomorrow? We need to talk. The 3 dots appeared immediately. Of course. Everything okay? We'll talk tomorrow. David showed up the next evening with her favorite takeout and a worried expression. Maya had barely eaten all day, her stomach in knots. They sat on the couch, the food untouched between them. David waited patiently for her to start talking. I think we should break up, Maya said, the words coming out in a rush. David's face went pale. What? Why? Did I do something wrong? No, you've been perfect. That's the problem. I don't understand. Maya took a shaky breath. You deserve someone easier, David. Someone you don't have to constantly accommodate. Someone who doesn't need help navigating restaurant hallways or can't go to certain places because they're not accessible. Someone whole. The last word hung in the air like poison. David was quiet for a long moment, and Maya braced herself for him to agree, to realize she was right. Instead, he said, Can I tell you about my dad? Maya blinked, confused by the sudden change in topic. Your dad? He left when I was 8. Just packed his bags one day and moved across the country. You know why? She shook her head. Because taking care of my mom was too hard. That's what he told her. She'd just been diagnosed with MS and he couldn't handle it. He said he loved her, but it was too much work. David, I'm sorry. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I spent years watching my mom blame herself for his leaving. She'd say things like, I'm too much trouble, or he deserved better. And it broke my heart every time because she was wrong. She wasn't too much trouble. He was just too weak. Maya felt tears threatening again. I don't want to be a burden to you. David moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. Maya, look at me. You're not a burden. You're the person I want to spend my time with. Yes, sometimes we have to plan ahead for accessibility. Yes, sometimes we deal with ignorant people staring. But that's not you being difficult. That's the world not being designed properly. But don't you get tired of it? I get tired of inaccessible buildings. I get frustrated with people who design spaces without thinking about everyone who might use them. But you? Never. Being with you makes me happier than I've been in years. How can you be sure? David took her hands in his. Because when I wake up, you're the first person I want to talk to. When something funny happens, you're who I want to share it with. When I'm working on a difficult problem, I want your perspective. None of that has anything to do with your wheelchair. But it's part of my life. It's part of what being with me means. And that's okay. Maya, my mom has MS. My best friend from college has diabetes and checks his blood sugar 5 times a day. My cousin has severe allergies and carries an EpiPen everywhere. Everyone has something. Your something just happens to be visible. Maya wanted to believe him, but doubt still gnawed at her. What if one day you wake up and realize this is too hard? What if you leave like Kevin did? David's expression softened. I can't promise I'll never leave. None of us can promise that. Relationships end for all kinds of reasons. But I can promise that if we ever break up, it won't be because you use a wheelchair. It'll be because we grew apart, or wanted different things, or any of the normal reasons people break up. Your disability isn't a relationship death sentence. You really mean that? I really mean that. Maya, you're talented, funny, smart, beautiful, and occasionally stubborn as hell. You challenge me to think differently. You make me laugh. You listen when I talk about work stuff that most people find boring. You're an amazing person who happens to use a mobility device. That's not a flaw, it's just a fact. Maya wiped at her tears. I'm scared, David. I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of you waking up one day and seeing me the way Kevin did. I'm not Kevin. And honestly, from what you've told me about him, he sounds like an idiot who couldn't see what was right in front of him. David squeezed her hands. I see you, Maya. All of you. And I choose you, wheelchair included. But you have to choose me, too. You have to trust that I know what I want. What if I make things too difficult? Then we'll figure it out together. That's what partners do. My mom used to tell me that love isn't about finding someone who makes your life easy. It's about finding someone worth doing the hard things with. Something in Maya's chest loosened, the tight knot of fear beginning to unravel. Your mom sounds wise. She is. And she really likes you, by the way. She told me not to let you get away. Maya laughed through her tears. She did. She did. Said you're the first person I've dated who has a backbone and doesn't let me win arguments too easily. I do let you win sometimes. Rarely. And I love that about you. They sat in silence for a moment, the takeout now completely cold. David reached up and wiped a tear from Maya's cheek. So are we breaking up? He asked quietly. Maya thought about everything he'd said. About how he saw her as a complete person, not a collection of limitations. About how he'd included her in his life so naturally, introducing her to his friends and family, making plans for the future together. About how he made her laugh and challenged her and supported her dreams. No, she said finally. No, we're not breaking up. Thank God, David said, pulling her into a hug. You scared me. I scared myself, Maya admitted into his shoulder. I don't know why I do this, why I can't just accept that someone might actually want to be with me. Because Kevin was an idiot who made you doubt yourself. But I'm not Kevin. And I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to go. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other. Finally, David pulled back and looked at the cold takeout. Want me to heat this up, or should we order fresh food? Fresh food. Definitely fresh food. While David called in a new order, Maya sat on the couch and really looked at him. This man who'd fixed her wheelchair without making a fuss, who knew her design work and engaged with her passion, who introduced her to his friends and family like she was the most natural part of his world, who saw her heart before he saw her chair. Maybe that was what love really meant. Not someone who looked past your challenges, but someone who saw all of you and chose to stay anyway. Someone who understood that everyone came with complications and yours weren't deal breakers. Hey, David, Maya said as he hung up the phone. Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I tried to give up on us. He sat back down beside her. Always, Maya. I'm in this for real. And this time, Maya let herself believe it. 1 year after they started dating, David asked Maya to move in with him. They were at the coffee shop where they'd first met, the place that had become their spot for big conversations. I know it's a big step, David said, nervous in a way Maya rarely saw him. But I spend most nights at your place or you at mine anyway, and I really want to build a life with you. Maya's heart swelled. A year ago, she would have panicked at this suggestion, found reasons why it wouldn't work, worried about being too much of a burden. But she'd learned to trust David's words, trust his commitment. "I'd love that," she said, "but we need to find a place that really works for both of us." They spent the next 2 months looking at apartments. David researched accessibility features with the same intensity he brought to his work projects. They needed wide doorways, a roll-in shower, accessible kitchen counters, and a building with good elevator access. "This one has a great kitchen," David would say, "but the bathroom layout won't work." "This building has perfect accessibility," Maya would note, "but it's too far from your office." Finally, they found it. A renovated apartment in a new building designed with universal accessibility in mind. Wide hallways, lowered counters in some areas with standard height in others, a beautiful bathroom with a roll-in shower that didn't look institutional. "This is it," Maya said, imagining their furniture, their life together in this space. "This is definitely it," David agreed. Moving day was chaos. Jasmine and her husband helped, along with David's friends from work. Maya directed traffic while David assembled furniture with the focused determination of someone who refused to admit when instructions were confusing. "That shelf is upside down," Maya said, watching him struggle. "No, it's not, David. The brackets are facing the wrong way." He stopped, looked at what he'd built, and sighed. "Okay, it's upside down." Everyone laughed, and David took it in stride. He'd learned to accept help gracefully, just as Maya had learned to ask for it when she needed it. That night, after everyone left and they were surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, they ordered pizza and sat on the floor of their new living room. "We have an actual home together," Maya said, still processing it. "We do. How does it feel?" "Scary, amazing, right?" David leaned over and kissed her. "All three of those sound accurate." 3 months later, David's company held their annual holiday party at a fancy hotel downtown. Maya wore a deep blue dress that she'd spent way too much money on but felt incredible in. David wore a suit that made him look unfairly handsome. "Ready to dazzle my co-workers?" he asked, offering his arm for balance as she transferred from her chair to the car. "Born ready." The party was in full swing when they arrived. David's hand rested comfortably on her shoulder as they navigated the room, stopping to chat with various colleagues. People asked Maya about her design work, and several mentioned they'd seen her portfolio after David had enthusiastically recommended her for freelance projects. "He talks about you constantly," one of David's teammates said with a knowing smile. "We've heard about every restaurant you've tried and every movie you've watched together." Maya glanced at David, who looked slightly embarrassed but not apologetic. Later, they found a quiet corner away from the crowd. David seemed nervous again, fidgeting with his drink. "You okay?" Maya asked. "Yeah, He set down his glass and took both her hands. "I've been trying to find the perfect moment to do this, and then I realized there's no such thing as a perfect moment. There's just the right person." Maya's heart started racing as David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Maya Chen, you are the smartest, funniest, most talented person I know. You make me want to be better. You challenge me when I'm wrong and support me when I need it. You see the world in ways that constantly amaze me. I can't imagine my life without you in it." He opened the box, revealing a beautiful ring with a simple, elegant design. "Will you marry me?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. A year and a half ago, she'd been convinced she'd never find someone who could see past her wheelchair. Now she was looking at a man who'd never needed to see past it, because he'd always seen her completely. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, absolutely yes." David slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed while his co-workers erupted in applause around them. Maya had been so focused on David that she hadn't noticed people gathering. The next hour was a blur of congratulations and hugs. Jasmine cried when Maya called her with the news. Patricia, David's mom, sent a string of excited texts ending with "Welcome to the family." Later that night, back in their apartment, Maya couldn't stop looking at the ring on her finger. "Can I tell you something?" she said. David was making tea, their nighttime ritual. Always. 6 years ago, when I first got injured, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never have any of the things I'd dreamed about. Career, independence, love. I thought the wheelchair meant giving up on all of that. And now? Now I have a career I love, independence I fought hard for, and you. Someone who saw my heart before my chair. Someone who chose me, all of me, every single day. David sat beside her, handing her the tea. You know what I think? What? I think you would have figured all of this out with or without me. You're one of the strongest people I know, Maya. You built an incredible life for yourself. I'm just lucky you decided to include me in it. We're both lucky. Fair point. They planned the wedding for the following fall. Maya designed all the invitations and decorations herself, creating something beautiful and uniquely theirs. They chose a venue that was fully accessible, with the ceremony outdoors and the reception in a gorgeous hall with wide aisles and multiple accessibility features. Jasmine was Maya's maid of honor, of course. Patricia helped with planning, offering suggestions but never taking over. David's best friend flew in from Seattle to be the best man. The morning of the wedding, Jasmine helped Maya get ready. The dress had been custom-made to look beautiful whether Maya was sitting or standing during transfers. She'd worked with the designer for months to get it perfect. You look stunning, Jasmine said, adjusting Maya's veil. I'm so nervous. That's normal. You're about to marry the love of your life. What if I cry through the whole ceremony? Then you cry. David will probably cry too. You're both saps. Maya laughed, feeling some of the tension ease. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was confident, happy, loved. The wheelchair was there, decorated with flowers to match her bouquet. But it didn't define the image. She defined it. The ceremony was perfect. David did cry, which made Maya cry, which made half the guests cry. They'd written their own vows, and David's included a promise to always see her heart first, which made Maya cry even harder. I promise to support your dreams, David said, his voice thick with emotion, to challenge you when you're being stubborn, to celebrate your victories and comfort you through difficulties, to be your partner in every sense of the word, to see all of you always, and to choose you every single day for the rest of our lives. Maya's vows focused on trust, vulnerability, and the courage it took to let someone really see you. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who makes life easy, she said. It's about finding someone worth doing the hard things with. You're my person, David, the one who saw me completely and stayed. At the reception, they had their first dance. David held her while they swayed to their song, and Maya felt completely at peace. People took photos, but she wasn't worried about what they'd see. Let them see a woman in a wheelchair dancing with her husband. Let them see love in whatever form it took. Patricia approached her later in the evening, when Maya was taking a break and watching David dance terribly with Jasmine. I need to tell you something, Patricia said, sitting beside her. Is everything okay? Everything's perfect. I just wanted you to know that watching you and David together reminds me why I stayed positive through all my difficult times with MS. Because there are people in this world who see beyond the medical stuff to the person inside. My husband left because he couldn't do that. But David learned from both of us, from what I went through and from his father's failure. Patricia's eyes were misty. You make my son so happy, Maya. And more than that, you've shown him what a real partnership looks like. Equal, supportive, honest. Thank you for that. Maya hugged her future mother-in-law, both of them crying happy tears. As the night wound down and guests started leaving, Maya and David snuck away to a quiet balcony overlooking the garden where they'd gotten married. So, Mrs. Torres, David said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. How does it feel to be married? Pretty amazing, Mr. Torres, though I'm keeping my last name professionally. I know. Maya Chen sounds much better than Maya Torres for a designer. They stood in comfortable silence watching the stars come out. Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here, the accident that changed everything, the years of rebuilding her life, the failed relationships and lonely nights. The moment David crouched beside her wheelchair and just saw a technical problem to solve, not a person to pity. What are you thinking about? David asked. How far I've come. How different my life looks from what I imagined at 22. But also how much better it is than I ever dreamed possible. Better than you dreamed? I dreamed of walking again, of going back to how things were. But this life, the one I have now with you, is better than any version of my old life could have been, because I know myself better. I'm stronger. And I found someone who sees all of me. David turned her chair so they were face to face. You know what I think? What?